Hello, this is the Ramblings of an Indisciplined Mind podcast for Friday, July 8th, 2016. As of this recording, Sierra is still missing. So, yesterday I watched the video of the man that got shot in his car during a routine traffic stop because policeman thought he was going for his gun. And yeah, it's a really sad video to watch. I mean, you're basically watching a guy bleeding out while, his, I don't know, his wife or girlfriend or what, she's live streaming it because she's kind of scared of her own life. And the cop was clearly panicked because he said something, and you could just, you couldn't see his eyes. You can only see him, from like chest level down, and you can see his gun because he kept his gun trained on the guy, even though he wasn't doing anything at that point. I mean, he was just laying there making not nice noises. And then, of course, we got the retaliatory killing of police in Dallas. I mean, I don't understand why you're killing police in Dallas. None of them shot this guy in Minnesota. But this situation and the political stuff that I've been reading, it's been an interesting political week with the results of the FBI investigation and Hillary's emails and all this stuff. It just kind of hit me this morning what our problem really is as a society, and that is that we've allowed ourselves to get polarized. We are up to our eyeballs in us versus them thinking. We've got whites versus blacks versus police, men versus women, Republicans versus Democrats. I mean, you name it. And the problem is that we treat all these differences like they're black and white. Pardon the pun, not intended. That they are, that they are polar opposites. And I think a large part of that thinking, I'm going to blame it on our two political parties that we have, because that's what they've been doing for a long time. I mean, this is nothing new. It's nothing new with this election cycle. It's been ramping up for decades. That the Democrats will describe the Republicans in the worst light possible, and the Republicans turn around and they give as good as they get. I mean, both parties are doing it. I'm not taking favorites here, and I think that has and so that kind of political discourse has become part of our daily lives more so in these days, in large part because of social media. But I think that's starting to I think that's bleeding over into other areas, and I think that's bleeding over into racial, white versus black. I think certainly black versus police. And I'm not saying there aren't problems with police forces and their treatments of blacks. I'm certain there is, otherwise we wouldn't see these kind of things happen. But I think before we can really fix this, we need to try to get closer to some semblance of unity. I think that's part of what Martin Luther King was trying to do. I've seen a lot of his quotes about, you can't fight hate with hate today, and if we were going to say, at least on that issue, if there's like a doomsday clock kind of thing, but for racial unity in this country, Martin Luther King moved the needle toward unity, but I'm concerned that we're moving it back because it is over the recent years, and this is just another flare up of what caused its problems with Baltimore last year. This isn't a new story really. It's just the next chapter of the existing story. But you can point to a lot of different things. You can point to the whole, gay versus straight. I feel like our society is splintering, and it's not just our society. I don't think. I see some aspects of that from people online. I certainly see those kind of polarized attitudes from people that are in New Zealand, Australia, wherever, in regards to men versus women, in regards to a discussion of rape culture, to a degree that, all men want to be rapists, which is not something I agree with. Certainly I think you can look at the Brexit vote. You can't not look at the United Kingdom right now and think that country is not polarized. That country just split in half on a very key issue, and their government is all but imploded because of it. So yeah, I'm going to say Britain's polarized at this point, and we're not done seeing what the ramifications of that are. So it does go beyond the borders of the United States of America. I'm not sure how prevalent it is in other countries, because I don't follow that many countries, but obviously we got two of the biggest countries, at least as far as power and influence, us and Britain, where that feels it's a really big deal. It's a really big deal. Now, I'm certainly not expecting that we're all going to come around the metaphorical campfire of America and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. There's always going to be differences of opinion and whatnot, but we need to get to the point where we are at least respecting each other, and we are at least being reasonable about each other's views. And I don't see any of that really going on right now. A great example of that is this Hillary thing with the FBI releasing their report on that. And he said, I read an article on CNN, mind you, so that's kind of the pro-Hillary camp, about what he said, and they aren't going to prosecute her, but at the same time, he really slammed her for being careless. And he did say that yes, classified material was sent through this server. And granted, well, I don't know what she said to them, but they didn't think they had a prosecutable case, so fine, so they're not going to charge her. Well, yesterday I saw a thing from I think it was the Occupy Democrat side that said that that result, what the FBI report said was that Hillary never lied. likely not true, because there's all sorts of video out there of her saying she never had one single classified email go through that server, and that's not what they found. They found stuff to go through, but then on the Republican side, they're of course all upset. Well, why isn't there an indictment? And they kind of took the needle in the totally opposite direction about how, well, now she's untrustworthy with secrets at all, and she should be banned from secrets through the campaign. I mean, you can't really ban her if she becomes president. Sorry, you're the president, but your security clearance is down to nothing. That isn't going to work. So you can just see they took this thing that's kind of a middle of the road decision for whatever reasons. I personally, I've got questions about it too, but that's not what I'm talking about. And the two camps have just taken, the Democrats say Hillary's a saint, and the Republicans are wondering why her butt's not in jail. And it's that kind of, whitewashing / blackwashing, I guess. You're either a total angel or you're a total devil, is the kind of polarized thinking that's becoming more and more prevalent in this society. And to me, that way lies doom. That way, ends in civil war and fighting in the streets and the breakdown of society if it gets going far enough. So that's what I thought I'd talk about today. I see that, and it concerns me. And I don't think it's just in the United States. I mentioned Britain. It could be happening in other countries too, and I'm not aware of it. But it definitely seems to be happening in this country. And I think the way to fight it is, to start with us. We can't really control what the big political parties do, but we can control what we do. And that's what I'd like to see the people that I'm interacting with do is try to, it's okay to disagree with people, but you don't have to go to the extremes. And that's the problem, is everybody's right to the edge, whatever, left, right, you go, if this person's in favor of this, then they're evil. If this person's not in favor of this, then they're a saint. And this group's great and this group's horrible. And I think that's a problem. There are other problems, that we need to take care of. Obviously, there's policemen that either shouldn't be policemen, or they really need to learn to understand what a threat is, and the color of one's skin, and even the fact that you have a gun and have a CCW license doesn't necessarily make you a threat. And until that, everybody involved really can change their thinking in that area, we're going to continue to have problems. I think we're going to continue to have problems with this polarization thing too. It's not going to change from the top. It's got to be a grassroots thing, I think. I really do. But anyway, I'm not here to solve the world's problems. It was just an observation I had. I thought I'd share. So, and I'm already kind of going on late today, so I'm going to stop here. Tomorrow's Saturday. I'm intending to give you an episode tomorrow, so I will be talking to you then. So, be seeing you.